Hi, I'm Mark, and we need to talk about Brexit again today. Because many supermarkets in the UK are rationing fruit and vegetables due to supply issues, as they put it. Each customer is only allowed to take a certain number with them, and many shelves are empty. According to its local farmers, Great Britain has to be increasingly concerned about food from domestic production. British egg production has fallen to its lowest level in 9 years. Almost a billion fewer eggs were produced last year than in 2019. For tomatoes and cucumbers, the associations expect production to fall to its lowest level since 1985. A number of cattle farmers also want to downsize their farms in the next 12 months, 40% of cattle farmers and 36% of sheep farmers. The farmers see several reasons for these developments. In addition to the increased costs caused by the Ukraine war, trade barriers caused by Brexit and an increased shortage of staff also play a role. That is also caused by Brexit. Climate change is also making life difficult for the industry, for example, due to droughts. The clock is ticking, unions say, calling on the British government to take decisive action. Trade barriers would have to be dismantled, farmers supported, and climate protection measures consistently pursued. In addition, in view of the increasing global burdens, one should not rely on closing the gaps with imports. The BBC reported on Tuesday that some of the vegetable shelves in supermarkets were unusually empty again, so tomatoes in particular are said to be in short supply. These are commonly imported into Britain during the winter, often from Spain or Morocco. Harvests there were recently affected by a cold spell that followed unseasonably warm weather. The supermarket chain Asda even limited the sale of tomatoes, also peppers and cucumbers and other vegetables, according to the report. And while his country is stuck in an economic crisis and all of this, Boris Johnson bought a listed £1 million villa. Even a moat protects the English estate. Boris Johnson once fell because of his party affair during the corona pandemic, among other things. And now the former British Prime Minister is said to have completed the multi-million-pound purchase of a huge mansion in Oxfordshire in England. Johnson could now easily and undisturbed celebrate parties there. The Grade 2 listed home is 755 square meters in total, has 9 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. The 2-hectare property even encloses a water-filled moat, and a natural spring feeds the moat. The British Guardian first reported on the upcoming purchase of Boris Johnson. The property has previously been advertised in UK magazine Country Life, among others, stating, "There is something wonderfully comforting about a beautiful country house that has been in the same family for many years." After the turbulent years as a Brexit fighter and Prime Minister for Johnson, maybe just the right thing. According to the agent description, there's also a walled garden, a tennis court, and a double garage on the property. The purchase of the property comes at a critical time, though. While Johnson apparently has the necessary money of 4 million British pounds together, the population is increasingly suffering from the economic consequences of Brexit, such as even higher inflation than anywhere else in Europe. Food banks are experiencing the greatest demand since their inception, and poverty is increasing. And according to the representative survey Unheard Britain 23, a large majority of people now think Brexit was a mistake. Only in a small region in the east are there still more supporters than people against it. According to The Guardian, the mansion has been put up for sale for £4 million. However, it's not known how much Johnson ultimately offered. However, it's now listed as sold under contract. And the former Prime Minister is said to have previously toured the 17th century estate in the picturesque village of Brighton-cum-Sotwell with his wife Carrie. And Johnson's spokesman declined to comment on the purchase. Boris Johnson was probably spotted checking out a private school in Oxfordshire last month. His son Wilf and his daughter Romy should possibly visit this school or these schools from September 24. But Johnson apparently does not want to retire with this purchase. There has long been speculation that the former Prime Minister could stand for election in Oxfordshire. Unlike in his previous constituency or current constituency of Uxbridge, on the outskirts of West London, he thinks he may have better chances outside of London, especially with the current polls. But he has a lot from his past coming after him as well. The ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson has indeed signed the Northern Ireland Protocol himself, and now he's putting pressure on his successor Rishi Sunak. He thinks it would be a big mistake to give up the law. So this former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is putting his successor Rishi Sunak under pressure in view of an impending agreement with the EU on Brexit rights for Northern Ireland, and that's according to many media reports. Johnson is threatening a rebellion within the Conservative Party. That's what the BBC and several other outlets have reported. And the background is, if an agreement were reached with Brussels, Sunak would give up a bill that would allow London to terminate the existing Northern Ireland agreement unilaterally. From the point of view of Johnson and other Conservative MPs, however, the planned law is a means of exerting pressure in future disputes with the EU. The ex-Prime Minister, who resigned last year, thought it was a big mistake to abandon the law. That's how a confidant was quoted as saying. Sunak has said on Saturday that there was still no agreement with the EU. The current head of government has been in office since October last year only. And under Johnson, he was Chancellor of the Exchequer until he resigned himself before Johnson had to go. But Johnson himself signed the so-called Northern Ireland Protocol. I can't emphasize that often enough. But he has been long calling for a revision since the internationally binding treaty created a customs border between the British region in the north of the Emerald Isle and the rest of the UK. And there were trade barriers for goods. Supporters of the Union with Britain fear the protocol paves the way for reunification with EU member Ireland. And the most important unionist party, the DUP, the Don't Understand Politics guys, has therefore been blocking the formation of a new government in Northern Ireland for months. But there are signs of progress in the struggle between the UK and the EU over the customs rules for Northern Ireland. After a meeting with British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, EU Vice President Maros Šefčovič spoke of constructive talks that were making good progress. However, he did not give any details in a Twitter message where he said that. However, the goal of the negotiations that have been going on for weeks, again, they're going on for years now, but the goal is clear: to come to common solutions in the interest of the people of Northern Ireland. And that's why he says the hard work goes on. After meeting Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the head of the pro-British DUP party, Geoffrey Donaldson, confirmed that progress was being made, although there were still fields to be worked on. According to participants, Sunak had previously informed provincial politicians that an agreement had not yet been reached. But according to an EU diplomat who wished to remain anonymous, the meeting between Cleverly and Šefčovič in Brussels was intended to prepare for a speedy agreement. And the British newspaper Times had reported that Sunak and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen would talk about it before the end of last week, possibly on the fringes of the Munich Security Conference. The text would then be presented to the DUP on Monday and to Sunak cabinet members on Tuesday. I haven't heard anything about that yet, although. The protocol provides for special customs rules for Northern Ireland in order to keep the border between the northern part of the Emerald Isle and the EU member Ireland open, also to prevent the Northern Ireland conflict from flaring up again. However, the agreement has created a de facto customs border for goods in the Irish Sea, separating Northern Ireland in this regard from the rest of the UK. But the DUP is using it as a smokescreen, because it's only creating a customs border for goods, as I always emphasize in my videos, and not for anything else. You don't need to show any idea whatsoever if you want to go from Northern Ireland to the rest of the UK and vice versa. They are still one country, even. It's the legal status at the moment, so we don't have to discuss where it should belong and whatever. that's a different topic I talked a lot about in different videos. But when I'm talking about the United Kingdom and the connection with Northern Ireland, everything, I have to use the current legal status as it is and as the United Nations and most countries on this planet regard it. And that's the point that I have to use for my videos. What the future brings is a different point. And but the other thing with the DUP is they are not the strongest party in Northern Ireland anymore, and that's bothering them much more than this Northern Ireland protocol. They're just using it as an excuse not to form a government with a stronger Sinn Féin, and they will drag that on as long as they can. I mean, Jeffrey Donaldson, this guy still believes the Earth is what, 6,000 years old? I mean, I'm Catholic, just saying, but this has nothing to do with the point with my stance with Ireland and the UK. But being a Christian doesn't mean that you have to believe that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. I don't take everything from the Bible literally. If we would do that, we would be in big trouble. You always have to see when what was written, and even the churches do that. And so thinking that the Earth is just 6,000 years, okay. There are probably still dinosaurs in Buckingham Palace. But the point is, we will talk about this Northern Ireland Protocol for quite some time. Unfortunately, what I read in the media about the plans with presenting this there on Monday, presenting this there on Tuesday, I haven't heard anything now when I'm filming on Wednesday that this has happened. I cannot find anything in our sources here that this happened, but we always know that there's a big delay in the negotiations that happen between Brussels and London, and nothing ever happened there on time since the Brexit referendum. And I don't know how many extensions we had when the House of Commons had to decide on the Brexit treaty for leaving the EU. Remember that time? I really do remember that. I had to watch it a lot, and all the discussions there and all the votings there. And this will drag on for quite some time. But the Brexit benefits, unfortunately, will keep on coming for decades. And so Brexit will be a topic for a long time, even if a lot of people in the UK, especially on the Brexiteer side, would prefer to shadow ban that topic, even when I still try, like some very delusional ones, to try to sell some weird stuff as Brexit benefits, which isn't. But I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.